With NHL 18, the one thing that stood out the most was the fact that it was clearly starting to become a stale experience on the current generation of consoles. The gameplay felt old, the presentation had become dull, and the modes all felt like too much of the same. It was obvious that something needed to be done, or the series could be forgotten about altogether. With NHL 19, EA Sports is giving players a number of new features and upgrades to try and make the game feel fresh again in the latter stages of this generation. But with so much that needed addressing coming into this installment, do fans finally have the hockey game they've been clamoring for, or does NHL 19 still come up short?
#1 source for the sports gamer.
Sports fans, we have a new challenger at the bronze rinks. The rookie will look to spread his wings and fly in his first ever matchup of the tournament. Good luck out there, my man.
The world of Chell is a mode that lives on the creativity of its users. From the look of players on the outdoor rinks to the way that you want to play, it's all about what the player wants to experience. Inside the Chell hub, a player's progression spans across each game within, of which there are 4 to dive into. There's the popular EA Sports Hockey League, the returning NHL THREES, and 2 brand new modes to enjoy. But before getting into the modes, let's touch on progression a bit. The game still doesn't allow attribute allocation for creative players, but there is a way to make your player different from the rest of the world in the form of traits. Each player can equip up to 3 traits per loadout, which you have up to 5 at your disposal after reaching certain levels. And each trait, which does affect different attributes on your player, is unlocked by completing various tasks. Now the first and best new mode is NHL ONES. A free-for-all game of 1v1v1, the game is taken outside on ponds and lakes. There are no rules in a 3-minute scramble for the most goals on a half sheet of ice. It's a pretty simple premise that provides arguably the biggest challenge of any mode. Players vie for the chance to play under the lights for a championship each day as the rankings reset every 24 hours. You'll have to start at the lowest tier, moving up with every win with the goal of reaching Diamond. However, every 2 losses will see your player drop down a tier. There's a new announcer who provides some fun one-liners and lighthearted commentary throughout each game, making it feel different than the rest of the NHL experience. The one downfall with ONES is the fact that it's online only, leaving you and your friends out in the cold if you are itching for some couch co-op outdoor action. The other new mode this year is Pro-Am that lets you take your created skater into games alongside some past and present NHL stars and legends. The offline mode is a nice way to prep yourself for taking it online in either the ESHL or ONES, as you can get a feel for the new mechanics while at the same time progressing your player. It's fun to line up alongside greats to achieve various challenges, but this is the new mode that I can see getting the least amount of playtime. The aforementioned THREES comes back relatively unchanged, but when a mode was as enjoyable as THREES was in its debut in NHL 18, it's kinda hard to criticize not touching it this year. There are over 900 different clothing options for your custom player. With jackets, toques, gloves, pants, and more, you have the option to really make your player reflect your personal style on the ice. Even more so, there are a number of new equipment customizations as well as goal celebrations to really let your personality shine. But I think the best part of the customizations are that you actually have to earn them via in-game progression rather than simply buying them. There are absolutely no microtransactions within the world of Chell. For a while, the best mode in the NHL series has been Hockey Ultimate Team, as it seemed like it was the only one getting real love during development. In NHL 19, it's safe to say that that's no longer the case. Becoming the deepest experience ever in an EA Sports NHL game, franchise includes a completely overhauled scouting system that makes it feel like it's a brand new mode. Players can hire and fire scouts, sending them all over the world to gather intel on both amateur and professional players. Whether you want to know about individual players or a group of players from a specific team, the new scouting mechanics give you the chance to find out whatever you want to know before adding a player to your organization. In addition to the general scouting, the new Fog of War system forces you to do the proper amount of scouting in order to find out the true rating of a player. If you don't do your due diligence, the player you scout may not be exactly who you think he is. Features like in-season contract negotiations, player morale, relocation, promotions, and more add to the fun that NHL 19's franchise mode presents. Now you can also once again start a franchise as an expansion team, but the game still doesn't allow in-career expansion. If you don't choose to expand at the beginning of your franchise, you can't do it later on. The previously mentioned hut gets some new additions, but remains largely the same thing from years past. After reaching a deal with the NHL Alumni Association, players like Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux are once again included in the game to collect and use. The ability to try out players via a loan is another new wrinkle to the mode, giving everyone an option to try before you buy. You still can't customize your team's look though, forcing you to wear an already created jersey that you get in a pack. It's pretty disappointing to see at this stage of the mode. The on-ice action of NHL 19 plays out better than it ever has. The real player motion technology that has been utilized in both Madden NFL 19 and NBA Live 19 makes its way to the NHL series, adding a new sense of realism to the game's skating mechanics. Larger players like Zdeno Chara skate slower with wider turns, while the small, shiftier players like Johnny Gaudreau zip around the ice like you would see in a real game. The transition between skating forward and backward feels smooth, the way players turn with and without the puck feels lifelike, and the stick handling controls appropriately. The real player motion also improved the game's hitting mechanics, as bigger players will put on accurate hits to smaller guys, and vice versa. From an AI perspective, the players are more adaptive to what's happening in a given game than in years past. If they get a sense you're throwing pucks along the boards to move up the ice, expect them to start covering the wall tighter. The controls in NHL 19 don't really favor one side over the other. There are enough ways to showcase your skill on both offense and defense to stand out. On the offensive side of things, the variety of dekes at your disposal gives players the ability to keep defenders guessing at what's coming next. Even saucer passes, when mastered, provide a great method for getting a prime scoring chance when on a rush. For defense, the defensive skills stick returns with a bit more control than NHL 18. You can still move the stick in any direction by utilizing the right analog, but you can actually feel a difference depending on what you're trying to do, whether it be a chop, poke check, or stick lift. Now I'll admit that at first I couldn't stand how the poke check changes worked. It felt far too easy to trip someone and way too difficult to actually make a play on the puck. But after spending more time with it, it quickly became apparent that it was all about the angles. More so than any other year, you just can't spam the poke check and expect results. If you don't place your stick in the right spot at the right time, you're going to end up sitting in the box feeling all of the guilt.
We're in Buffalo, where the Sabres entered the league in 1970 with the first overall draft pick, the eventual linchpin to the fabled French Connection.
Disappointingly, Be a Pro remains the most tedious mode of any sports game. There's nothing new here, as you still take your player into the CHL or right to the NHL and work towards becoming the best player possible. With no off-ice entertainment in between games, there's just no real reason to ever dive into it unless you absolutely love playing as a locked player with only AI opponents and teammates. On the presentation side of things, the NBC Sports broadcast package returns with Doc Emrick, Eddie Olczyk, and Ray Ferraro calling the action. If NHL 18's commentary felt stale and repetitive, well, you're not going to like NHL 19's offering. Far too often you hear the same lines repeated about teams and players, especially when in franchise. Rarely do you get dialogue about the current season, as it's clear there just aren't enough lines of dialogue to utilize. Sure, you'll get something relevant during the pregame commentary, but there's nothing about a player on a hot streak or a slumping superstar during the action on the ice or in between plays. It's about time that EA Sports makes the move to a younger and fresher duo to call the action that can actually provide a large selection of lines as well as have some genuine emotion in their calls. In addition to the commentary, there are no real stat overlays within games. While you may have on a given real broadcast a look at the top players in the league, top standings, or a team's best players, NHL 19 is missing all of that. You get some stats during the pregame skate, but like relevant in-season commentary, there are none once the action on the ice begins. Player models, while there are more scanned athletes this time around, still don't look as good as they should this late in the console cycle. When you see the scans of games like NBA Live and NBA 2K, it's tough to get excited about what NHL 19 shows. What's worse is that the jerseys still aren't completely accurate. From the font used on the Buffalo Sabres primary sweaters to the way the numbers look distorted on others, the art department needs to spend more time getting the designs of the main jerseys of every team accurate. NHL 19 succeeds in more ways than a hockey game has in quite some time. From the die-hard fan to the casual gamer, it offers something for every type of player. The world of Chell is a great foundation for what is going to turn into a larger community, while Franchise has finally seen the improvements to areas that fans have wanted for a long time. It's not without its flaws, but NHL 19 is finally a game that any hockey fan would be better off picking up than skipping. For more NHL 19 content and sports gaming videos daily, be sure to subscribe to Sports Gamers Online and hit that bell to be notified whenever a new video goes live, and visit sportsgamersonline.com.